Joining us now, Congressman, Republican, 10th District, Virginia. Some people say she is one of the most vulnerable Republicans in the Mid-Atlantic. I don't. I'm predicting her victory. I think, Curtis, she wins again, because if I'm running for anything ever, I don't want to run against Barbara Comstock, because she works like 20 hours a day. She has her own brand, and she delivers on her promises. And she's joining us now. Congressman Barbara Comstock, good to have you with us.
Great to be with you. How are you doing this morning?
We're doing great. Curtis Ellis is with me, and he's very impressed by the breakfast buffet that I put out here. Barbara knows when I go in her office, always have something to eat, because, you got to go up all those stairs, you get hungry. Speaking of going out and about, has anybody seen your Democratic opponent, Jennifer Wexton?
Well, I guess if you go to some Democratic committee events, you might. But I know we were out last night at the National Night Out, which is, the annual sort of community policing event. I believe it was the 35th anniversary last night. And this is a great opportunity to get into so many communities throughout the district. And we always do it as a district-wide office event. My staff, my district staff, and my D.C. staff all go out throughout the community. I get to as many as I can. Last night I was in Manassas Park and in Manassas in the Georgetown South neighborhood, and then we got over into Loudoun County, into South Riding, that always has a very large national night out, and our Loudoun County Sheriff was there. And then we had our office staff in about a dozen other locations. And this year I passed the Project Safe Neighborhood Bill, which is about community policing and getting resources out to our first responders and to our police, and making sure they're protecting our communities. The bill this year focused on 30% of the funding going to deal with regional task forces, to deal with things like our Northern Virginia Regional Task Force dealing with gangs and the MS-13 problem we have. This is a great opportunity that we've always used to talk to our local police, to talk to our community leaders, our HOA leaders, to say, what are you seeing in your community? And just to give you an example, last night when I was in South Riding, a gentleman first came up to me and he said, well, my daughter's singing in this band up there. She's like a junior high band that they had as part of this program. It was great, and she was singing. And so he's telling me about his daughter, and he said, oh, and by the way, in my business, I am working on the MS-13 issue, because we are working on some technology to help our task forces better be able to identify and track gang members so that they aren't in our community. So this is one of our technology IT people who was working on a project thanks to this legislation. So that was pretty exciting. And then also, our firefighters, I passed a bill actually in December that the president signed, which is to fund the firefighter grant so our firefighters can have new and innovative technology and training for them. And already Fairfax County got almost a $500,000 grant, and they're one of the top firefighting teams in the country. They send out their Task Force One, which goes all over the world when there's a crisis, to help rescue people from collapsed buildings or any other kind of tragedy. And so we've got some great things going on, and we were thrilled to be able to meet with all of these folks last night. Even though we were dealing with a lot of rainstorms in between, we were popping in and out of the rain and had a great night.
Barbara, let me just ask you this point blank. Is MS-13 gangs an issue in this race in the 10th district?
Well, it's an issue in my district. And let me tell you, it's ironic because the Democrats try and make it a partisan issue, and my opponent certainly has. She's opposed both of my bills, the one that was bipartisanly supported and is already impacting and helping our communities deal with community policing and gang violence. But she also opposed a bill which is a real simple bill. I passed the only bipartisan immigration bill this year that's gotten signed into law by the president on the actually through the House. Sorry, it hasn't been signed into law by the president. Sorry, wishful thinking on my part. It still needs to go through the Senate. But it's a bipartisan immigration bill that's gotten through the House with 12 Democrats, 12 Democrats, including 4 Democrats who are members of the Hispanic caucus. This bill is real simple. What it says, you don't allow MS-13 gang members into the country. If you find them in the country, criminal alien gang members, we kick them out. Real simple bill. You wouldn't think there could be any opposition to it. You think it's already law now, but it's not. That's why we passed it in the House, and my opponent opposes it. Just really amazing, given members of the Hispanic caucus have signed on. 2 women who are running for Senate, Democrats, Jackie Rosen in Nevada and Kristen Sinema in Arizona, also dealing with a lot of these issues. They supported this bill. They don't attack it for any reason. So she's really out in left field, not surprising. My opponent was named the #1 most liberal senator in the state Senate. And John, you as well as anyone know how hard it is to beat out some of those senators from Arlington and Alexandria, but my opponent did it, and she's got the record to prove it. And that's why she spends her time in really partisan events and not out with people. As far as we can tell, she wasn't out on National Night Out, which is always, I ran into a Democrat mayor in Manassas Park who talked to me about the problems that they are having with the EPA. Causing them too many regulations. She wanted me to work with her on that. I said, we will be happy to. We don't want to have our communities who've come up with good solutions to clean up their communities be bogged down by, onerous regulations from the EPA. So these are the kind of things you learn when you go out and work with your communities, talk to your community leaders and your local mayors and officials. And that's why we always, get out on those type of activities.
Let me just ask you this, Congresswoman. I know Jennifer, she's a nice lady. She's got children and whatever. So like you also, she's got to balance a lot of things. But it seems to me that your opponent, Wexton, is playing this race not to lose. I guess her consultants have said, look, you have a lead. We don't want to talk about Nancy Pelosi. We don't want to really talk about any issues. Just kind of ride the wave here. Don't want to engage Barbara and win. Look, I think prevent defense is a prescription for disaster. I think Wexton's got to get out in the community and debate these issues, talk about, what her policies are. Like, I would like to ask a couple questions that you might have the answer. Like, for instance, is she in favor of abolishing ICE?
Yeah, no. Well, obviously, I voted against abolishing ICE. Unfortunately, some of our local members voted present. Imagine voting present. We pay for you to go there and vote, and they voted present. And these are our federal employees. And as you know, John, I have been a strong defender of our federal employees, and they are the people who are, protecting our homeland. Our DEA agents. We saw DEA agents last night out in Manassas Park. They were out meeting with the community. Our FBI agents. Our ATF agents, they were all out in force last night. And so these are my constituents. They're the people I fight for. And I'm the only member of Congress in the Washington region who's never voted for a government shutdown. I don't support having that. So I really fight for our district and for the concerns. But I also think those are, national concerns, because having ICE, having them, those agents, who have we've had ICE agents die who are fighting to protect the homeland, trying to keep dangerous drugs out of our communities when we have this opioid and heroin crisis, and they are trying to, they work in dealing with, with our terrorism task forces as well as our gang task forces. So these are difficult, challenging jobs. That's why I've always supported them. But, I've not seen, she's not familiar really with the federal workforce. And let me tell you, I know you talked about, whether they think they have a lead or not. I can tell you I've never led in a Democrat poll in my 6-7 elections that I've had. You've never had the pundits on the Democrat side say they that we were going to win. I remember well in 2013, my mom was at the polls with Kathleen Murphy, who went home to prepare for her victory party, and my mom stayed at the polls. So after 7 o'clock, Kathleen left at 5. We were out at the polls until about 7:30 ourselves, and we do our victory lap on Election Day. We do it by being out and in touch with the community. I'm heading to a school event this morning for out in Frederick County, where our school kids have a great annual event where they all come together and with their teachers and with our community leaders and kick off the school year. And we'll be meeting with them. And our sheriffs are usually there too, because part of keeping the community safe. And that's another bill. As I mentioned, our Project Safe Neighborhoods bill is also helping with gun violence and keeping our schools safe. We passed the Stop School Violence Act this year, which we already are having grants go out to our schools to keep them safer. So we really have gotten a lot of things done this year that often don't get covered by the media. And I know, John, you're great at covering the economy. And, a lot of the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about the really unprecedented economic recovery, the low unemployment, low African-American unemployment, low Hispanic employment, but not just low unemployment, but people getting raises, getting better benefits, things like, Walmart and some other companies, they've expanded their paid family leave. Walmart went from 6 weeks to 10 weeks because of the specific provisions that we had in the tax bill to encourage that, particularly for people who are on the lower end of the pay scale so that they can have that paid leave. But it's a great issue in order to have employee retention. So we're working on these workforce development issues where we can make sure that people not just get a job, but have opportunity to advance and to get higher salaries to, really, in this 21st century economy, that they can bring home better wages and keep more of their own money, which, of course, our tax cuts allow them to keep more of our own money. That's a big dividing line with my opponent. She is not just for repealing the tax cuts. She wants to increase people's taxes. Again, that number one liberal label she has earned because she has supported every tax increase recently in Virginia history, things like the meals tax, taxing whether it's hotels or car sales, all kinds of things that she's regularly supported. And that's why, whether it's the hospitality industry or our business industry, she has not been on the side of small business, and she has very low ratings with them.
Congresswoman, are you in favor of extending the personal tax cut under the Trump tax cut law to make that permanent like corporate is? Are you in favor of doing that prior to the midterms?
Yes, I believe we are going to be taking it up. I've also, talked to the chairman about maybe some additional tax relief to add to that. So, and that is something they are looking at, not just extending our current tax relief and making that permanent for individuals, so you have those lowered rates, but then are there some other ways we can have some additional tax relief to help our families, to help our businesses, and that's, it's clear from nonpartisan sources in my district. There was a group, it's called the Ferguson Group, that works for Loudoun County, 40% of my district, a little bit more than that have said the majority of people in Loudoun County, vast majority, overwhelming majority, are getting tax cuts under this bill. And again, my opponent just misrepresents it. And it's pretty clear from her financial disclosure forms that she is among those who should be receiving a tax cut, yet she misrepresents the bill regularly. And, as you know, because you talk to business people, small businesses, individuals, we have provided good tax relief to families. And, families with children saw their child tax credit go from $1,000 to $2,000. So if you have 2 or 3 kids, and say you were in our area where we have higher income, but it's 2 income families who are paying, like my daughter, 2-income families, they're paying over $30,000 in child care. So even though they have 2 incomes, you're paying a lot of money to go to work, and your transportation costs and your child care costs and all the costs.
Right. Well, that's part. That's a big. That's yeah. That's a big part of the deduction now, and I know that Ivanka Trump was involved in really bringing that to the forefront. One of those things, if you don't have 2 or 3 children at home and you're paying for child care, it doesn't really come on your radar screen. Final question here.
She's been a great advocate. I should mention, I was just talking with her the other day on the paid family leave front, and she has really been a great advocate. And on our side of the aisle, because I have a paid family leave bill for federal employees, because most large employers in the country now do paid family leave. It's a retention issue. It's a way you can keep talent, and particularly keep women in the workforce who want to be, by giving them that time. And then you don't have to retrain a new worker just because you have someone gone for 3 months. I have already, in my own workplace in Congress, had women who've had babies, gone on that 3-month leave and then come back, and we were so glad that they we were able to retain them. Now, I obviously support moms being at home if they want, or coming back to work if they want, but I think we should have a paid family leave for our federal employees. Ivanka supports that. She's also working with a number of us to provide more incentives for paid family leave for small businesses and for others who it's more challenging for them to be able to do it. So I really appreciate her leadership on that front, and as well as, we've had bipartisan support on that issue too, but she's, I know, has her father's ear on that, and as well as a lot of senators and members of Congress on both sides.
She's a great lady. She's been at the forefront of paid family leave, and also for the she worked very hard on getting this tax cut through, and also putting the child care provisions in it. And she's really one of those people in the White House. She doesn't get a lot of attention, but she's making a huge difference. I'm out of time. Barbara, I want to thank you for being with us. You're going to win this race. I have no question in my mind because of who you are and what you do, and I appreciate your time today. We're going to continue to ask Jennifer Wexton to come on our show to give her equal time, as we will do every time you're on. So far, we've been blown off like the proverbial cheap suit in the rain. John Fredericks Radio Network.
Yeah, and I should mention, we've agreed to a Loudoun County Chamber event. It's a regular event that they always do with state and federal and local officials. And so we look forward to engaging on the issues. And I also like to tell your listeners, we're Barbara Comstock for Congress.com. My opponent is getting a lot of money from Nancy Pelosi. Hillary Clinton maxed out, so we need to match those tens of thousands of contributions with Hillary Clinton. So thank you.
Barbara Comstock for Congress.com. Congresswoman Barbara Comstock, thanks for being with us. Really appreciate it.